So welcome to the Journal of Expressive Writing monthly open mic. It's January 15th, 2025. We are so thrilled to be featuring Exodus Oktavia Brownlow tonight as our featured reader. And she'll be reading with us for about 20 minutes. And then we will be going right into a Q&A. You will have a chance to post any questions you might have in the chat room. And I will ask Exodus a few questions. And after that, we will turn off the recording and we will go into the open mic where we will hear from 15 of you who have pre-registered to be in our open mic. And we do pre-registration if you want to be in the open mic, pre-registration only. We don't do night of list making. So for those of you in our open mic, you're already on our list. I believe we have a waiting list for tonight. But what is also really important and super helpful, if you're trying to record, I don't know if anybody's trying to record this session. We don't allow that. I am recording for the YouTube link, but I'm getting some notes that you might be trying to record. I'm not sure if that's a Zoom problem or what, but if you are trying to record it for some particular reason and you need to talk to me about that, just direct message me in the chat room. That would be great. So it would be really helpful for Jen, who is going to be helping everybody get ready in the lineup for the open mic, if you would check to make sure your little Hollywood square has your name on it, the name you signed up for in the open mic, because Jen's going to be looking to see, okay, who's here? Who could we move from the waiting list because so-and-so is not here? Introducing you, it's really helpful to have you named according to your Hollywood square matching the name that you signed up for reading in the open mic. So if you would check that now, and then I'll just go ahead and give one more quick reminder that we ask you to read for 3 minutes or less in the open mic. And I do time and keep track of that because we like to end promptly at 8:30 and 8:30 Eastern. And so we kind of, to keep that timing right, we need to keep you at 3 minutes or less, please. And it's certainly fine to read for less. And if you time your reading ahead of time, that can be really helpful. If for some reason you start to go over that 3 minutes, I may have to interrupt you. And please don't take it personally. I'll just let you know, oh, your time is up, and then you'll come back next time and you won't take it personally, and we'll be glad to have you again. All right, now I want to take a moment to introduce to you the person you probably already know if you're in any way connected with the Journal of Expressive Writing, and that is Jen Minotti, who's the founder and the editor of the Journal of Expressive Writing. By the way, I draw your attention, maybe you read her email today. I think it was sent out today. Maybe it was sent out yesterday, about encouraging you to do your expressive writing, your journal writing. There's a lot going on in the world. And Jen wrote, I thought very poignantly, a story about how that writing really serves her. And if you haven't read it, I hope you will. Okay, I don't know why I keep getting that notice, but I'm going to just move it out of my way. Sorry. So Jen, would you like to say a few words of welcome, please?
I would love to say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Um, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. I know there's a lot going on in the world and in everyone's lives. And so I'm also a little sick. So it's just so nice to come together as a community, and we feed off of each other, and we always leave here feeling better than when we came before. So I know that's going to be the case tonight with Exodus. I'm so thrilled to hear. Wait till you hear her voice. It's the sweetest voice. And I can't wait to hear her read her writing, and all of the rest of you who have signed up. And thank you to those who are listeners, because readers need listeners. So thank you for being here tonight.
All righty. And so the next thing I want to do is read a poem. As those of you who know who've been here before, I like to find a poem that I will share with you as a sort of our coming together and our opening. And tonight I have selected a poem. Well, we all know there is so much big news going on in the world of really complicated and difficult and challenging things for people in Los Angeles, the people who are involved in active wars, and all of the challenges that are going on far from us, near to us, even in our own lives. So I have selected this poem, a poem by Charles Bukowski, for us tonight, called The Laughing Heart. The Laughing Heart, Charles Bukowski. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is a light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Beyond the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you. Wow, now I'm going to introduce Exodus. So Maud Lavin, or Lavin, in a book review, wrote about Exodus's book. I'm afraid that I know too much about myself now to go back to who I knew before. And oh Lord, who will I be after I've known all that I can? Those essays, and look at all the little hurts of these newly broken lives and the bittersweet, sweet and bitter loves. Well, it's obvious that Exodus has a phenomenal talent for titles, fascinating titles. And Maud Lavin says, Exodus Brownlow creates worlds, and they are sumptuous, vivid, filled with longing, bearing patches of starkness and containing vectors of misdirected love. Her first two books, primarily short stories, were both published recently. She says they'll take you to Black Hawk, Mississippi, into the town and into the surrounding forest and into a deep feeling heart, thoughtful, observant mind, and lyrical cadences that you don't want to stop. Exodus's nonfiction delivers on this knowingness. In the essay, We Deserve More Black Stories with Happy Endings, she states, I want to write the happy Black endings that exist fully without tragedy. Happy endings like the countless books that I've read by white authors featuring white characters. But I want them to be written because they exist outside of fantasy. I want them to exist because they reflect reality. Exodus has been published or has forthcoming work with Electric Lit, West Branch, Denver Quarterly, Friction, Boothcraft, and more. She's been nominated for Best of the Net, Best Microfiction, Best Small Fictions, and a Pushcart Prize. Her pieces, Chicken Girls and Chicken Ladies and All the Possibility of Pillowcases, and it's 5 a.m.ish, and my father tells me a story from his time in Singapore, were all included in Best Microfiction 2021 and 22. Her piece, The Terrible Darling, was featured as a Wigleaf Top 50 2022 selection. She's the recipient of the 2022 The Changing American South Fellowship at the Writers' Colony at Dairy Hollow in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. She received a Mississippi Arts Commission grant for an individual nonfiction artist fellowship in 2023. Now, her essay, When the World Was Ending, We Wore the Corner, Twisted Our Coils, and We Waited, was selected for Best American Essays in 2024 as a notable selection. She's author of a fiction chapbook, Look at All the Little Hurts of These Newly Broken Lives and the Bittersweet, Sweet, and Bitter Loves, which was published with Ethelzine and Press in the spring of 2023. Additionally, She's author of a debut collection of essays. I'm afraid that I know too much about myself now to go back to who I knew before. And oh Lord, who will I be after I've known all that I can? It was a Mississippi top 10 reads with the Clarion Ledger, debuting at number 6 and was published with ELJ editions in the summer of 2023. You probably didn't know, might be interested to know, her favorite color is green. Welcome, Exodus Brownlow.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Kelly, thank you so much for being such a fantastic host, and Jen as well. I'm always so grateful to be invited to virtual readings. It's such a great space to be amongst fellow writers, to share our work, to celebrate one another, to spend our evenings together, just hearing beautiful words and beautiful voices. So I'm not a very big, I used to be very big on preparing for readings, but usually I just like to sort of sense the vibe of the crowd in the evening and just what I'm in the mood to read. And I've decided on three pieces this evening. I'm going to first start off with one of the, I'm sorry, hold on one second. The second essay in my essay collection, I'm afraid that I know too much about myself now to go back to who I knew before. And oh Lord, who will I be after I've known all that I can? This piece is called We Give and We Give and We Give So Much. Spring 2024. It's the plums, the way they pile themselves up in the sink like that. Pile themselves up like freshly milled pulp at the bottom of a bucket, poppy red, peach, putrid brown. And that's when I know the bad baby's at it again. When you fold yourself over the sink, I fold myself over my lap. When you fold yourself over to pour, I fold myself over to pray. When you fold yourself over the sink where your rounded belly presses against its edge, you say my name. You call me Octavia. You call me your child. You call me bright eyes because there's nothing to fear. Sometimes the bad baby lets you eat when there's nothing making you poor. Ramen noodles if I have to make something quick. Pre-packaged paper bag Alfredo if I have to make something quick but more fancy. Fried turkey sandwiches if you can wait a little longer. I cover the taste of them with lots of butter. Let the meat lay lingering on the skillet to make it crisp up on good. When it's done, it tastes less like something quick and more like something longer, more like the meals you used to be able to make us. When the bad baby gets your sugar levels high, you eat a special type of cookie that keeps you from getting sick. I eat them with you sometimes, and they taste in a way that a cookie should never, like red medicines that promises flavors of strawberry, but taste more like straw than berry. I eat them with you because they're not so bad, and if the bad baby can handle them, so can I. It's the plums, the way they pile themselves up in the sink like that. How the sour, sweet stink smell stays inside my nose to hunt me at night. How so much came from up and out of you that you cried, that you coughed, that your face turned all red and everything. You give and you give and you give so much, too much to this bad baby. And why are you giving so much to them when you already have me? When all the bad baby does is take from you and it hasn't even been born yet. And here I am, already born and able to give back to you. You tell me that when you become a mother, giving becomes second nature, becomes part of who you are. I ask, but what do you get in return? And you pinch my nose, you, and you rub your belly, them. The bad baby lays between us, where your belly grooves into my own. From above, we would look like a spoon and a bowl and another spoon. I can feel echoes of their kicks bounce against my stomach, and I know that this will be another one of those nights for us. for you. That's when I fold myself over the most, and I give and I give and I give so much, never too much, and everything to this bad baby. I pray to the bad baby like I would to Allah. I call the bad baby my beneficent. I call the bad baby my merciful. I call the bad baby Lord of all worlds because there's everything to fear. So that piece I wrote in honor of my mom when I was 12 years old. I'd been a only child up to the age of 12, and my mother got pregnant when she was like in her early 30s. And so it was sort of a shock to just go from an only child to suddenly having a sibling on the way and seeing the processes of pregnancy and the toll that it took on my mom and having this sort of underlying fear that that something bad would happen to her. I think I've always had a big fear of like my mom passing away too soon or something like that. And so just being young and just seeing just how much women are people who can have children and how that takes a toll again on the body, on the mind, and still choosing to become a mother in spite of all of that, I think it just sort of like helps shed a couple of fears that I still have in regards to all of that. And again, I love my brother more than anything now. But being a child, you don't really think about that. You kind of thinking more so like, I hope my mom is okay. So that piece is written again in honor of my mom. So the next piece is, I mean, I know what I want to read. I'm just thinking about the order in which I want to read them. Um, I'm gonna read a piece that's the most fictiony uh, nonfiction piece in here. Fiction is my favorite genre to write in. I know that's ironic given that my first book technically was a collection of essays, but I love fiction, and if you had to make me choose a genre, I would choose that each and every time. This essay is basically about trying to write happy stories and in a sense sort of finding it impossible, at least at the time that I was trying to figure out how to get to that place, and how every time I would try to attempt to write a happy, a good feel kind of story usually wound up being horror or something that was a little bit like harder to digest. So this piece is called For Horror Writers Who Have Tried to Birth the Happy Things. There are many of you in my purse, and many in my wastebasket, and also many of you on my floor. In bed, I sit up sometimes, staring at your crumbled bodies, sometimes reaching for one of you because I think I want to see you from an uncrumbled place, my children. I want to see your talons, your blood, and your teeth. And maybe you are better now. Maybe you are the right kind of beautiful. I tell only to myself, just let them breathe, girl. Just let them feed from your breast a little. You have two of them, and you have not let them even nestle at your nipple once, nor have you let them sleep in the crook of your neck. Let them almost whisper their first words before you crumble their bodies back up at least. I think only to myself, but I've seen what you could be when you grow up. And you're only tiny terrible now and not so beastly bad. People might say that you're cute when I point to you in the crowd, when I proudly claim that you're mine. I know only to myself, but oh, if I let you live, the terror you would bring. And what would the neighbors say? And my folks, to know that I can birth such things, to know that this is the kind of mother I have set out to be. Where is your softness, they demand? Where are the delicate curls amongst your mangy mess? Where is the God in you? All they can see is the devil in you, and they feel that there is enough of that in the world already. They complain, your children have such foul mouths when they speak. It makes our ears bleed. It makes our mouths so salty. They cry too much and too often for our liking, so please numb their teething a little by rubbing rum on their gums, so that we can all sleep more soundly at night. Shape your baby's heads while they're still soft enough to be molded, and tape a quarter to their belly buttons. Shave them bald so that their hair may grow out right next time. Why is it that my body can't produce the princesses? Why is it that only trolls come from out of me? I have tried, but the princesses never come out right. They are scaly and misshapen and sickly looking. They crave poison under their pillows and not peace. It is better for you to be what you are and ugly than to be something that was meant to be pretty and not so at all. There is nothing more grotesque and terrible than to be something. I'm sorry, there is nothing more terrible than to be something that is grotesque, that was meant to and expected to be beautiful. If I put you in the bathtub, would you swim, my darlings, or would you eat up all the soap and drown? Would you die and come back as better ghosts to torment the ones that I love too? If I place a pillow over you instead of under, would your wails echo loud enough to hoist it away? I am asking you all the questions as if you will have all the answers, but aren't I the older one here? And shouldn't I already know? But I'm hoping that since you have taken all of my innocence and in being new, you can see in a new way too, some knowledge that is lost to me. I have thought of all the ways to kill you, and each one only brings you back worse. I have thought of all the ways to live you, and for I know how you began and where you were meant to start. And wouldn't they all be surprised to know that before you were the villain, you had been born good? Would they love you as much as I do then? Would they understand a little bit of tiny terrible exists within us all? Would they see themselves inside of you? And in the same way that I do, ice and fire all set against the brown in your eyes. Oh, my monsters, your tongues are as sharp as your teeth. I have set out to live with you and only you at night in this room, and it is fine that it is only us, but could you please be a little gentle when I nurse you next time? I want to kick your fathers in their teeth, Peel, Rice, Stevenson, for leaving me pregnant with the idea of you to birth you on my own. My body is stretched out from the weight of carrying you, and my eyes have grown dark from the late nights of caring for you. But they always say, that there will be moments that will make it all worth it, and really, you will miss them when you grow old and forgetful when they were this small and precious. When I was drunk and overly confident and willing to take a risk, a few of you found your way out of the crumbled pile, found your way into someone's home who had mistaken you for sweet orphans for them to adopt. You had gone inside, all smiles and charm, and wiggled your way into their hearts, and warmed your way into their beds, and weaponized their love. You burned their houses down, and with them still inside, and they became your companions, your forever ghost friends. It makes me happy that you will have someone to take care of you when I cannot, who will remember what your favorite foods were and feed them to you with their own hands. In bed, when I am able to rest, when the light of you have held your screens for me to tend to tomorrow, deep cuts rest on my fingers from where they have served as your pacifiers. Okay, thank you all. Okay, so I like to keep my readings short-ish. I always think it's so important to honor everybody's time, even if they're having a good time, but to always leave them wanting just a little bit more rather than take up all the time that you can. And also, I'm really anticipating listening to everybody else's readings as well. Um, I'm gonna read from an essay that I actually don't read a lot of, because sometimes I feel that there are essays that are for the readers to read themselves to themselves, and there are some pieces that feel like they're meant to be read out loud. But since this essay got into the Best American Essays 2024 is notable, I wanted to read that piece, at least partial of it, because it is on the longer end of the spectrum. And just sort of to have a celebratory moment with you all, because I think this is the first time I'm reading it post news. So as soon as I can find it, because I've specifically marked out where I want to read that essay. Okay, yes, I found it. And I will get started. So this essay is When the World Was Ending. You can't see that. I don't know why I turned it that way. When the world was ending, we wore the cornrows, we twisted our coils, and we waited. And it takes place primarily in Black Hawk, Mississippi. The dated is March 26, 2020 for context. And I'm going to read the last 4 pages of this essay. It is said by the older Black women in your life that for a Black woman, there's nothing worse than the unkemptness of oneself. Skipping showers and dirty fingernails and unbrushed teeth, all shameful, blasphemous failures, no matter the current condition of the outside world. You are never to sit in your personal filth, to sulk the day away beneath your bed's covers. Instead, you are expected to get up, to get clean, to do. You used to think that this ideal had everything to do with vanity, with some inability for us, for even a second, to be human for just a few breaths. As you feel the reality of this new world in your bones, the familiarity of it passed down to you like a genetic trait, you know that underneath all of that, it is instead the inept need to maintain the preservation of self and sanity. That if you lose who you are, who would be there to take care of your loved ones when you are the only one who has ever done so? To outsiders, we are already undesirable and ugly and menacing, and to combine that with the possibility of disease is the absolute guarantee of our death. We are what the world looks to with a harsher eye. The super strong woman that dare not catch the crazy, that dare not fail, that dare not behave in some uncharacteristic way that suggests that we have become a furthered, mutilated version of our already modified, watered down, and well behaved African self. There are so many others, even outside of our loved ones, who depend on us, on that stability. Even though those harsher eyes are more comprehending now, sometimes, and less inept to control our bodies as they did our ancestors, sometimes, you know that even the slightest slip of yourself in this world that is losing itself every day is not to be entertained. You cannot leave your body to failure, your hair to the wind, your hygiene forgotten, your family and home to recklessness, because if you fail in these ways, when you are the greatest great granddaughter of your greatest great grandmothers who have already endured the worst of the world's years, when you have all the hair grease you could ever want and cool air at night and modern medicine, then maybe it would be a sign that there was nothing left to save. You fall into anxiety, into self pity, into the worst fantasies imaginable, wondering how it is that you cannot handle any of this when you have it all so easily. Later, you find yourself moving. You have to move because somehow they found a way too. Everywhere around you, all on the news, highlighted as statistics on social media sites, they say that we are the ones that will die from this the most. That somehow, even though we are a minority, that the status of this will be reduced even further. Why are we so very unwanted, but somehow always wanted by the worst of things? Maybe it is reckless or callous, but you decide to let your bones speak to you, to let them talk away, to let yourself relax. You are breathing now because it is not what they say or about who has had it the hardest or that you currently have it so easy or even about the hair really. It is about this simple thing right here, this simple act of taking care of yourself as best as you can to take care of your sister who will go on to live in the newer new world. Your specific kind of societal terribleness will be replaced by then. Time gone. The things that made you cry at night suddenly subject for satire and jokes. It seems cruel, unfair even, but this is what the passage of time does. It softens things. It is about the preservation of this small part of yourself, of your reality, of the plaiting and or twisting of your hair, of the small acts of your productivity, of the inhales and the exhales, of the intent of your mindfulness, and of the consideration of the temporariness of all things that eventually go on to save the world, to secure the future. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Exodus.
Thank you.
Wow. Um, that was a wonderful reading. So thank you. I'm asking in anyone here, if you have a question, put it in the chat room. And if anybody knows the chat room, a question is already posted there that I missed, please feel free to unmute and let me know. Exodus, well, I think the first question I have to ask is about titles. What? So you have these phenomenal titles, and I'm curious about your approach to titling and how you developed it. Did it come just completely from the beginning, or, do you look for, what do you do? What are you doing with titles? How do you do it?
Um, so it kind of started with this one piece, and this is a fiction story that I wrote back in 2019 called "When It Gets Cold in the South." Excuse me, only the pumpernickel survives. And people really love that title, that piece. And I've been thinking about, like, because I feel like every artist, no matter what your form is, if you're a writer, if it's music, if it's sculpture, we all have like our own specific calling cards, or like our own things that are our signatures. And I thought, well, maybe
Mm.
this could be mine. And also, I'm kind of greedy. So it kind of it eased my mind to not have to think of like, oh, I gotta find the most amazing singular word, 1 to 3 words max, and make that my title. The more words I was able to use, the more I'm able to sort of like summarize, in a sense, the essence of the piece. And it just became fun, like, just like, how musical can I make the title, what kind of language can I use. Sometimes I get really southern with it, and I'll use words that technically don't exist but do exist in our culture. And just something that I challenge myself to try to do, not every time. But if it feels like it needs a longer title, because I never try to force it, then I will play a lot with that form.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, this may seem like a non sequitur, but I'm going to ask you about what it means, because in your bio, it's mentioned a lot, you're a sewist.
Hmm.
And tell us about what that means to you to be a sewist, if you don't mind. And then I'd love to hear a little bit about if you feel like there is any relationship between your sewing and your writing, or what that might
Yeah.
be.
Okay, so I'm a late bloomer with a lot of things, but especially sewing. But the older I get, the more I don't actually like using that term. But I'm using it just for relatability purposes. I didn't start sewing until the pandemic. I feel like a lot of us picked up hobbies that just became part of our lifestyle, and I've always had such an adamant love for fashion, and
Mhm.
I have this habit of, like, I'll ask my some people that I know who are really great with sewing, and I'll have these ideas, and I'm like, "Can you make me this?" And charge whatever you want. And I think around this time, people were kind of getting away from small business. It wasn't paying out as well, unfortunately. And so I just decided to pick it up. And so is kind of like the newest term, because it sort of encompasses um, not just sewing in itself, but also if you're like into fashion design, if you make your own patterns and all of that. So I'm still very much so in the beginning stages of this. I think I really buckled down this year to take the time to learn it. It's been such a joy, because again, I think it's really motivating to think of like things that we can be talented in, or even just interested in, coming to us when they come to us. So even though I've loved fashion pretty much my whole life, to be able to be in my early 30s and kind of decide to really root myself to it, I think it keeps the decades exciting. Like, I'm curious about what will my 40s bring, my 50s. Like, ooh, like, what little talent or what little interest will be waiting for me then. But it is very intricate in the same ways that writing is. It's the deeper that you go, the more the more you understand, like, the relatability between writing and sewing, because
Mm,
Just like with writing, we have our first drafts and we have to
yes.
go in and we have to shape it and mold it to get it to that perfect piece. It's the same with sewing. And I used to think that, like, with sewing, it would be like, okay, I just cut my pattern pieces out and I sew it together and that's it. And that's never the case, because even when we're making things for ourselves, our bodies change. How fabric lays on us, depending on what type it is, whether it's cotton or velvet, you have to go in and be willing to sort of give yourself to the patience of the process, always revising and editing it to.
Yes, yes.
So they correlate so well.
Yep.
So if you're a writer and you have the patience to write, I feel like it's a great field to get into too, because we already know like what the job entails when we are trying to perfect our writing pieces.
Well, it seems to me that you are a person, a woman of style, that stylistically, this is really important. You being really distinctive with your style in your writing, as well as with your fashion and the way you dress, the way, it seems like expressiveness is part of your true nature.
Yes, it absolutely is. It's part of my joy. And again, just finding different ways to be able to express that has been, it just feels really rooted to like my purpose. And I think that it's such a gift to be an artist. I think our ability to see the world again in whatever form of art that you use is so incredible. And I'm always trying to cheerlead people when it comes to that, because I think often we forget ourselves just like how amazing it is to be able to have this gift to write, to sew, to paint, to draw, whatever it is that you do. It's incredible. And I think that being an artist, we're able to relate so much to the world in a way that it's needed. We need artists. They are what make the days worth living for, in my opinion.
Beautifully said. And now this middle piece that you read is, well, my question is, have you always been able to write or wear yourself into beyond inhibition? So your story about, gosh, I forget the title, but the one that's sort of dealing with horror and your direct address to these pieces you've written that seem like they're coming out horror, but you're not intending that, right? Okay, so that story seems to me to be getting a lot at how to find permission in
Mhm.
the world of inhibition, in the against the voices of inhibition or silencing, or no, don't say that. You can't say that. These crumpled bodies, you are really sort of honoring them and letting them not be silent at the same time
Mhm.
that you're really afraid of them coming into
Yeah.
the world. So that dilemma is so you seem to be working that out so effectively in that essay. So I guess I'm curious about if you've always been able to give yourself permission to be as fashionable and expressive with your, sewing and your writing as seems natural.
I think for the most part, sort of. Again, it usually takes me a while to sort of root myself to something, to approach something confidently.
Hmm.
I think this essay is a great representation of that, because again, I had been very concerned about the pieces that I was writing. Not that they were like extremely traumatic or anything like that, but sometimes I found myself thinking like, okay, do we have enough of this topic in the world? Like, can I write something that's a little bit more positive? Just like my essay, "We Deserve Black Stories with Happier Endings." That was written because, like, when I would try to write, whether it's a short fiction piece or a longer fiction piece, it felt like sometimes it would go down a negative route. But what I found was that, like, sometimes there's a calling to write those for a reason. And once you sort of, like, in a sense, exercise them out, then you can kind of see your way to, like, how to write a happier story that feels natural, that feels not cheesy, that feels like, that just feels like it was in you all along. But first, you have to let go of some of your own personal fears.
Yeah, well, that's really, really beautifully said. A wonderful, wonderful example. I think your language is so your language, the experience of hearing and reading your writing for me is such surprise, leaps, freshness, originality, all the things certainly that you want literature to be. And I'm curious about your process of how um I just admire the leaps into the strange and the unusual and the original, and how I'm curious about your process with that and how you shape things in these really unique ways. Does it come, somebody mentioned, I think, yeah, David Kramer, stream of consciousness. In fact, he says hyper consciousness. I'm curious about how much of that is deliberate, how much of it is magical. What's your relation to where and how language gets to its best place on the page for you?
Yeah. So I'm really big on revision. I think I love what my favorite part of writing is, like, the first initial spark when you have an idea and you got to sit down, you got to get it out. I love that part. But, Kiese Layman always talks about, like, the magic comes with revision. And truly, that to me, that's it, because I can sit down and I have this piece that I'm really excited about. And it's like I'll look at a word or I'll look at a sentence and it's like, how can I say this in a way that feels musical but not too off-putting to the reader? I don't want to lose you with too much fluffy language. I still want you to be sort of rooted to the earth in a sense. So how can I use that? And oftentimes, like, even just the way that we speak, especially in the South, there's so much opportunity to take advantage of that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm always, and then I also get kind of a little bit, for lack of a better word, bored. And so it's like I want to try something different, but I don't want it to be different for the sake of being different. I want it to be different for the sake of, like, trying to push myself in a healthy way. I take a really long time with a lot of my pieces. I'm not a very, very quick writer. I think I'm fair, but yeah, like, just again, how can I challenge myself to say this in a different way? How does it sound? How does it taste? How does it look? And again, like, when I'm satisfied with it, how does this translate to the reader? Because I want you to be able to read this and enjoy and understand and relate maybe to it on some kind of level, personally as well. So I mean, the fun is just, again, like, how can I be different today? And again,
Mhm.
different for the sake of, like, honoring the piece, not different because it's like I'm trying to, you know.
Right.
Because
It's not just show, it's not for stuff, it's not for effect. It's
yeah, yeah,
it's really
exactly.
coming, you wanna come from authenticity, it sounds like, and it also sounds like, another thing I'm really hearing that stands out for you, Exodus, is that you in revision are really consciously thinking about your audience. You're thinking about your reader. You're consciously thinking about shaping something that honors you and what the piece is, but also really gives something meaningful and substantial. The reader is part of your revision process, this projected reader.
Yeah, I think it, like, has an order for me. Like, it's always for me: writer first, honor yourself first, then the piece, then the writer. Because again, I mean, not the writer. I'm sorry, the audience. Because
Yes.
again, they're part of that too. But I also, like, caution people against, like, thinking about the audience too much when creating, because then you might scare yourself. Because, like, oh God, what if nobody likes this? What if this? What if that? It's like, just again, make sure that you like it too. Um, above anything else, even if that means if it's just for you. But if you are wanting to put it out into the world, again, like, if they're reading this, can they enjoy it? Can they understand it? They don't necessarily have to relate to it. Like we can hear stories from people of different cultures and backgrounds and religions and it not be for us, but still find it so beautiful and, moving and all of that. So again, just we don't want to be off-putting in a way that just feels kind of like, I guess, stark. Being an editor, sometimes I will read things that feel off-putting in a way that's like not because of the languages, but maybe because of like the topic at hand. It's just a little bit aggressive and not in a way that feels like, again, genuine.
Thank you. I want to mention Stephen Energia's comment. He says, wonderful reading. And he's asking a question. Thinking of the second piece and work that blurs lines between fiction and nonfiction, how do you approach with like that practice ethically? So is this a struggle for you? I think he's asking, how do you have a sense of presenting it as nonfiction, presenting it as fiction?
Um, I think if it feels, I always know when something is fiction or nonfiction. It's never sort of a toss up for me. But if I'm like fabricating a lot, even if it's a real life occurrence. I had a story that came out in January that's about Bobby Rush, and it's a who is a blues singer here in the South, and it's a very fictionalized account of me and my auntie Nanny. That's what we call her. Her real name is Lula Campbell, but we all call her Auntie Nanny. But I was able to I took a lot of liberties with that because I guess the universal truth that I was trying to like put out into the world required fiction. So sometimes you'll have something that feels like maybe you want to borrow from a real life moment, but it needs fiction to get the message like across. Because sometimes real life doesn't give us the satisfying like snap that fiction can sometimes. Um, I think fiction allows us to see the possibilities of real life in some instances, and sometimes that's nice to have. And then for nonfiction, usually that's something that's much more vulnerable for me naturally, and it's because I wanted to share an experience that showcases, in a sense, like it's okay that if you have experienced this, I have too. So you kind of have to just sort of decide, like, hey, what are you comfortable sharing? If it is truly nonfiction, you decide to put it as fiction regardless, that's okay as well. You don't have to always um be your most vulnerable self with your art. I think sometimes it's just nice to have the art as is, especially if people are enjoying it. And we don't, you don't have to put yourself at on an even more vulnerable stage if that's not what you want to do. So again, it's all about like what you're comfortable with. How how fictiony did you get with the piece? Then maybe you decide to make it fiction after all. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, it's been so um wonderful to talk with you and learn and hear your writing, but also hear about your process exodus. We're just thanking you so much. What a lively reading and discussion. And we're gonna go now to the open mic and we will check back in with you at the very end of tonight and give you a chance, if you want, to read through all the comments in the chat room. So now, thank you. And I'm going to remove your spotlight, remove my spotlight, and we're going to get ready to spotlight our readers in the open mic. I need to stop the recording, so I'm going to do that.